Serfs in Europe were not allowed to have swords, bow and arrows, spears, or any other type of military weaponry. They classified it all as military weaponry. So serfs did not have that. When the firearm came along, if you were to war, because the lord of the manor decides to protect his property, you were given a rifle and some powder and some balls of lead, and off the war you went. And when you got done, if you weren't killed when you came back, it went back into the arsenal of the Lord. Because you're not allowed a sword, you're not allowed a bow and arrow, you're not allowed a spear, and definitely you're not allowed a firearm. And that's the way it happened, yeah, for centuries. You went off the war, you served your king, or the lord of the matter, you might say. And when you got done, you get your pay, which is usually not very much, and you turn in your gun. No serf peasant would want to be caught with a firearm, because that's a hanging offense. You don't want to get caught with a bow and arrow, because a bow and arrow you can kill the lord of the manor or a deer. That's a hanging offense. Boar hunting, that was a hanging offense. But did farmers get that? Well, of course they got it. They made their own bow and arrow, but you're not allowed to have it. True. They made their own spears, but they're not allowed to have it. True. When they had firearms, they were not allowed to have it. It was actually extremely costly to get one, because you had to not only get the firearm, but you had to get the saltpeter to make the black powder, the sulfur to make the black powder, and the charcoal was charcoal. But a lot of stuff became black market material. Well, my great-grandfather came here as a serf because the lord of the manor bought 10,000 acres in northern Wisconsin. And of course he did sell off some, but my great-grandfather came here as a serf, a sharecropper. And he basically walked into a house that was built for him, and because a barn abouts and all the implement with plows and everything else, because the lord manor of back in the old country could afford that, buys 10,000 acres, then buys this and buys that, puts up a house. And there was a standard farmhouse made by these people. There was, it's like walking to a Sears house. 100 years ago, you could buy a Sears house. I think you can buy a Menard's house now, but back then you could buy a Sears house. That didn't cost much money, because basically people didn't make much money. Those who had money could do what they want. Those who didn't have money couldn't do anything. But back to my father, our great-grandfather. He came here and he found out that he could buy a bow and arrow. What? He walks into the hardware store or the grocery store and that thing, and he sees bows and arrows on the wall. Wow. Gee, you're allowed to have those? Why, would you like to buy one? I'm not allowed to have a bow and arrow. The store clerk says, what? What do you mean you're not allowed to have it? Who says so? Oh, my Lord Master says, you're in America, guy. Have you looked at our collection of rifles? I'm not allowed to have that. Oh my, You mean you people have this? The Lord Mayor doesn't. How come you have this? We're never allowed to have that in Europe. And the guy basically said, you got the Second Amendment here. You can have that thing. It's not that we don't trust the government, it's that we don't trust the government. If it turns out the government turns out to be a rotten thing, yeah, we will overthrow the government. So that's always, the politicians always know, maybe not in England, where the king and the lords and all that control, but here, our representatives really don't want to make us mad. We also have a habit of lynching and burning at the stake, trying them as witches, things like that. Or basically run out of office by our nasty commons, and we also have the freedom of the press, which can be very ugly to that thing. But my great-grandfather said, I will save money and buy a rifle, and he did. Maybe he didn't shoot it very much, but he had a rifle, and he did. And my father said, growing up, they also had a shotgun. My father learned to shoot for pheasants, extra food, ducks, pheasants. Hey, food is food. But, so, every European who gets here becomes an American citizen now, usually does one thing. Something they could not do in Europe. Something that was illegal for them to do in Europe. They buy a gun. Sometimes they need a gun because if they have a store where it is, but they buy a gun. They may never use the gun. They may use it only once in a while, but they buy a gun. Something like, yes. So immigrants who come here, who can't own a firearm legally in their country, like in Mexico, or even better, it's extremely hard to have a firearm in Canada, and it's right now, this is 2022, the end of May, it will be illegal for any citizen owning a firearm. Well, let me see, you can't have a firearm that has a magazine more than five bullets. And then you can find out that you can't have a firearm that has any bullets. You can't have a pistol. You can't have an M15, M14, no, the AR-15. I guess that's a semi-automatic. Sorry, I have a crossbow. And you can't have hunting rifles, you can't have this, you can't have that, and you have to turn them in. And if you're not, you're considered a criminal and you will go to jail. Of course, all the Frenchmen up there who must just got shocked to find out their French leader has decided that what they have had for a couple centuries is illegal. And if they happen to have an assault weapon, it's illegal. They will go to jail. They haven't heard that term since Nazi Germany invaded France. 1939? 1940? It's illegal for people back there to have firearms. And now it's illegal for French Canadians to have firearms there. It's also illegal for English Canadians, who most likely don't like firearms in the first place for some strange reason, something about overthrowing. If you're American Indian in Canada, not American Indian, Canadian Indian in Canada, you're going to be told right now, you can't own a firearm. If you're a Canadian Eskimo in thing for hunting seal and that, you're going to be told you can't do that anymore. You can't have a firearm. We're going to try to prevent anything like happens in the United States, mass shootings. Oh, that's great. So what do? Is the only people who are going to have illegal guns will be criminals. They will have no fear of home invasion, robbing stores, killing police. Yeah, There will no more have any fear of that. And they're going to put blocks on the borders. Oh, you better know they're going to put blocks on the borders all along the Canadian side and all the way up to the Alaskan side. You better know it, because it will be illegal to bring in ammunition or firearms. You will go to jail. But that's going to become a smuggling black market grain, especially among the French. You better know it. And they're going to look at Trudeau as being the Führer. So you guys want to make some money out of your guns that you got here. You don't mind Canadian dollars. They're going to give you top dollar for top Canadian dollars for the guns you got in the United States, or ammo you got in the United States. So that's going to be a commodity, a black market item. Oh, maybe they will outlaw crossbows and longbows in Canada too. That could be a commodity here too. Yes, I'm afraid so, folks. It's very interesting. Oh, by the way, in Texas, as far as I know, they haven't passed any kind of, if Illinois that I live in happens to have these gun laws really restricted. And for you to possess a firearm or one round of ammunition, even a little CB like that, you need to have a FOID card that is issued by the Illinois State Police. They don't register your guns. They register you. And if you have firearms, you need that FOID card. If you're going to carry, which they do have in the state of Illinois, the right to carry, but you have to go through training, you have to go through extensive background tests, you have to go through all this stuff. And when you go through the coursework about how to use a firearm, and everything else, and the responsibility of, if you pull that gun and shoot somebody, unlike a police officer, you pull that gun and shoot somebody, you're really held responsible. You can be sued if the person survives, and if the person doesn't survive, their relatives will sue you. But, oh yeah, there are 3 million FOID card holders, approximately 3 million FOID card holders in Illinois. Somebody once mentioned to the governor, I think it was the last governor, Reiner. Do you know, Reiner, that you have X number of FOID card holders? Well, he says, oh yeah, I know, I'm one of them too. But no, you don't understand. The state police has a name of everybody who has a FOID card holder, and very likely everybody who has a FOID card holder owns a firearm. And if something goes wrong, like a earthquake or a tornado or something like that happens, the state police can sit there and call out the people where, say, a town is hit by a tornado and that, they can call out citizens who have FOID cards and basically deputize them for a very short while as security at these towns, because they know these people are honest. You better be, or else. But yeah. And that Ron said, what do you mean? You literally have almost a 3 million man and woman army at your disposal. Think about that. You've got, not just have you the National Guard. You have almost 3 million people around the state who are armed. You have your own private army. Boy, things have changed. Hey, it's good to be an American in the Second Amendment, unlike the slaves or serfs in Europe, which are still not allowed to own firearms, even though they're at war with Putin. Wow. Awful.